Zealand's Mayday, it could become a domestic operator only if it doesn't get another cash injection from the government. The airline today revealed a loss of $454 million for the year ended June, as it wrote down the value of its fleet, sacked staff and saw its revenue drop by $1 billion as borders closed. Air New Zealand's benefited significantly from a $330 million government fund to prop up international freight flights, but that contract is due to run out in November. And the airline is just days away from dipping into its $900 million government loan. Chief Executive Greg Foran says the result is, well, better than he expected.
Today's numbers are about where we expected, actually slightly better than where we'd forecasted a little while back. We have said that the year that we're in at the moment, we do expect to see a loss based on the scenarios that we're modelling, and that sort of makes sense. You know, last year we sort of had 8 months where business was normal and then 4 months where we effectively weren't doing too much flying during COVID. And of course we're going into a year this year where at this stage, you know, we had domestic going well in July, but that's come back a bit now from the 11th of August, so it's going to be a bit tougher this year.
So you actually think it's going to be worse this next 12 months?
We are very likely to incur, in terms of an underlying loss performance, you know, a loss which is more than what we had this year, just based on the fact that we're going to have more months to deal with.
How long can you sustain this?
Well, one of the things that we've been working actively on is to get the rate of cash that we burn down, and you probably saw in some of the results, we've made some good progress there. So, you know, we were burning $175 million a month. We've been able to get that down to $85 million a month. And we've forecasted that, you know, we would expect that number to be between $65 million and $85 million per month going forward, providing we get domestic up and running and the freight operations continue, because cargo's been a good bonus for us. So, you know, based on that, we can keep going for some time. We're in discussion.
What's some time though, Greg? Because you're about to dip into this $900 million government loan facility. You're telling us that, you're days away? So do you mean a few days, a couple of weeks?
No, we're reasonably close to having to use that. We've notified Treasury that we'll need to start drawing that down. But, you know, that is a reasonably, you know, large sum of money, and you can do the maths in terms of how much cash we burn, and you'll see how long we last. But of course, you know, there are other discussions.
Sorry to interrupt, but that's not long, isn't it? Because even though you have, as you say, cut down the money that you're churning through in any given month by a significant amount, if you just put one number into the other, the answer is not long before you burn up that $900 million.
No, we can last a reasonable amount of time. So, you know, we've got no issues through for this year. But of course,
so what's reasonable?
You know, what you don't want to do, well, we have no issues for this financial year. We'll be able to operate the business.
Is that how short term you're looking ahead, that you can get through the next financial year?
No, as you're probably aware, we're having discussions with our majority shareholder, our partner, the government, in terms of what else we might do in terms of funding the business. And, you know, one of those options is obviously equity, and those discussions are underway. No decisions yet on that, but, you know, clearly that's an option that we're looking at.
So realistically, do you think that the government will need to have a bigger shareholding in Air New Zealand for it to stay afloat?
Well, what the government have said, and it's in our release, is that they want to continue to be the majority shareholder. They're 52% at the moment. And as I've mentioned, we're in discussions with them, no decisions yet, and we'll just have to see where that plays out.
What do you think that might look like, though?
As I said, discussions, no decisions yet, and, you know, it's not something that I can share further information on.
Okay, understand that. Let's talk about the current restraints on you right now. So at the moment, Auckland's in level 3, we go to level 2 next week, all things being equal. What does social distancing mean for ticket prices?
Well, let me get to that. But, you know, the first thing I would say is that, we do completely understand the need to keep everyone safe, and that's one of the reasons that Air New Zealand has been so proactive, with crew around PPE gear and, making sure that planes are cleaned, etc. Capacity restrictions, as we see, can bring further reassurance, but, as you've identified, they do bring some challenges. So it does make it reasonably tough for an airline like Air New Zealand, as it would for any airline, when you only can operate with half the seats on a smaller plane and 2/3 on a larger plane. And we've seen that with Jetstar. So, Jetstar have pulled out of the market, and they probably won't come back until we get down to level 1 and there's no social distancing. So, it's an ongoing discussion. I'm hopeful that we're going to get ourselves down to level 1 and we'll be able to get back to operating as a normal airline reasonably soon.
Could you put a figure on how it will affect tickets, though? Percentage? Will it send prices up 5%, 10%?
Well, it depends how long it goes on for, Lisa. So if it goes on for a short period of time, we'll maintain where we're at. If it went on for a lengthy period of time, it would make sense that prices will start to go up because demand is likely to exceed supply.
When I talked to you a few months ago, you were looking for an extra $150 million in further savings. So where is that coming from, and can we expect some more layoffs?
So that process is well underway, and we've been working really hard at pulling that together. And those savings have come right across the business again. Pilots have assisted us. Airport workers have assisted us, cabin crew have assisted us, engineering and maintenance, those in head office positions. And,
do you mean by taking pay cuts?
In some cases, pay cuts, in some cases, voluntary exits. In some cases, there may be some more redundancies. That is a last option. But we've made good progress on that, and most of it has been achieved through means other than redundancies.
But you're saying that option is still on the table, so how many potentially more jobs could go?
Not many. And by that I mean, in all likelihood, less than 100.
Okay. You have been very clear about the fact that the government freight contract has helped you out significantly. I think that's due to run out in November, isn't it? So what happens then? Are you asking them to extend that?
So yes, you're correct. It has been extended just literally last week through to November. It is one of the key reasons that we're still able to fly internationally. We do about 50 international flights a week, Lisa, but that is on the back of freight. It does allow us to also move passengers. So a lot of those flights might have something like 40 to 100 passengers on. So it's allowing some repatriation of New Zealanders back home. And it has assisted us in terms of our cash position because they are cash positive. In terms of what happens if that subsidy is not there, then we'll need to review exactly how we want to operate internationally.
Would you still be an international airline if you lost that support through that freight contract? Because you're saying there that it's what makes it doable.
That's correct. It would be quite difficult for us to fly internationally without that support.
You would then just be a domestic airline if you don't get a continued freight contract?
We'd have to have discussions with in this particular case, the government, to see what we could do. It would certainly make it quite difficult for us to justify flying internationally, especially when, there are caps on how many people can come back into the country. So that would make it very difficult for us.
Have you discussed that with your shareholding minister?
We have been discussing that particularly with the Ministry of Transport and continue to have discussions on that.
So do they realise how precarious that international situation is for you right now?
They do, Lisa. So,
and have they given you any undertaking?
At this point, it's been extended through to November, and we continue to have discussions.
Are you confident that you'll get more assistance?
All I can say is the discussions continue, and we'll just have to see where they play out.
Does that make you nervous?
I would rather know for sure that we could continue to operate internationally with that cargo assistance. At this stage, we know where we're at through to November. We'll have to see what happens after that.
And that's Air New Zealand's Chief Executive Greg Foran.